Welcome back to Tech Entrepreneurship. I'm your instructor today, as every day that we take this class, and I'm excited to talk about being able to move the needle. So last class, we talked about management and management's bandwidth, management's capability, management capabilities and competencies, and being able to show that you can execute your model. All models work, right? We know that every model that you're ever going to see in life, every model that you're ever going to be presented works. Very few people are going to present to you a model that doesn't work, right? It's not the model that matters as much as it is the actual management executing that model, okay? I'd rather invest in an A management team with the C product than vice versa, than an A product with the C management team, or even a B management team. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Primarily, and the one that you need to know is execution. When we're talking about moving the needle, we spoke last week, we spoke on Tuesday about who we're going to target first. Who's our primary customer? Who's going to help evangelize? Who's going to help drive our awareness? Who's going to create that diffusion, the process by which your product is able to get into the eyes and ears of people the fastest? Who's going to do that? Number one, we know we're going to go to the cult. Number two, you have the early adopters. And the cult is somewhat, as we know, synonymous with the people that are early adopters. But to me, they're even more refined in their expertise. They reject mediocrity and they accept superiority. Then we have the early adopters, followed by the early majority, then the late majority, and then the laggards. Okay, and this is basically on a continuum, and we went through this on a continuum. Here we are. And the blue ocean, the blue ocean is right here, and then the red ocean is here. Now, there is a gap between here and here. And this gap we call the market development gap. Thank you. We call it the market development gap. And the reason being is when you're in the blue ocean, when you're a niche product, and you want to go to the red ocean, you're going to have to bridge this gap. You're going to have to bridge this gap. And it's not easy. It takes a lot of resources, takes a lot of people, and it takes a lot of distribution. Okay? Let me illustrate to you the market development. Let me try it this way. The market development and what the heck is this? The market development gap graph. You can't hear me? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So when we talk about the market development graph, we need to know where we are in terms of the blue ocean and the red ocean. So here we go. I highly suggest that you illustrate this on your own. On this side, we're going to have ROI. On the x-axis, we'll have time. The y-axis is ROI. And here we have the cult. Here we have the early adopters. Here we have the early majority, followed by the late majority, and then finally the laggards. Okay? Now, this is the gap that I was talking about right here. This is the market development gap. Now, in the market development gap, you notice that there's a chasm, and there doesn't seem to be a bottom. Here we have the blue ocean, and over here we have the red ocean. The question that I had for you last class was, can you make money in the blue ocean? Can you make a significant amount of money in the blue ocean? Can you develop enough of a reputation? Can you develop enough of a market share that it's meaningful? Yes, you can. There's no question about it. Think of all the niche products out there that are doing well. Think of high-end watches. Think of high-end vehicles. Think of high-end luxury items, any one of them, and you're going to find that they are in the niche. They're in the blue ocean. They're in the blue ocean. Now, when you launch your startup company and you start launching your first few products, this is where you're going to be. At the very onset, the very beginning, you're going to have two choices. How are we going to price our product? Is it going to be premium pricing, or is it going to be at a discount? If it's going to be premium pricing, which I highly recommend, there are very few of you that I would recommend that you price your product at a discount. We call it skimming. And skimming is premium pricing. Think of the Apple iPhone. When it launched at the end of 2007, the iPhone had an original cost of around $600 to $700. And the first people who purchased it were right here, the cult. That was the first group of people that paid for it, and they were willing to pay more. They were willing to take risks. They were willing to have something. They wanted something that other people didn't have. There was a lot of image associated with the iPhone, but there was also some new technology. No one had really come up with a mass production touch screen. The smartphone in that respect did not exist. And then after 6 months, the early adopters started to acquire it, but after 6 months, then you had competitors come in with the smart screen, or touch screen, I should say, and iPhone did what? They started off skimming at a very high price point at $600, and then it went to $400. The early adopters paid $400 6 months later. Apple has resources, they had distribution, and they also had people to launch this beyond the niche market, beyond the cult, beyond the early adopters. And they were able to bridge that gap, bridge the market development gap into the red ocean, into the mass market, into the mainstream. Everything was standardized. It was all about, for Apple, it was all about being able to make a custom product or something that seemed like a custom product standardized so they could keep their price point up. Remember, they launched into the market at a premium price. It's called skimming. They were able to move into the red ocean. By the time they got into the red ocean, the prices had dropped precipitously. The prices had gone from 600 to 300, 600, 400, 300, 200. And then they started coming up with generation after generation after generation. You can now buy an older generation phone for a fraction of the cost of a new one. The red ocean, all things to all people, means that you're going to have to drop your price point. It means that you're going to have to bring your price point down so that everyday people can buy it. Not just the experts, not just the cult, not just the early adopters, so that the average individual can acquire it. And that is how you bridge the gap between the niche and the red ocean. If you fail to make this jump, you're going to drop into the abyss. And there's my stick figure going into the abyss. Now, I want to take a step back here for a second and talk a little bit about the other avenue of pricing. If you come in at a discount, let's say you want market share immediately, which doesn't mean that you can't price your product at a premium price point. But let's just say you go the AOL route. It's called market penetration. You're looking purely for volume. Be careful. Pardon me. Be very careful, because people fall for this volume trap all the time. And it is a trap. People say, well, Aram, if I only get 10% of the market, no. We need to be talking about relevant market. And your relevant market isn't going to be 10% of the healthcare industry. Your relevant market is going to be much smaller than 10%. And look at where we start. We start off with getting the product into the right people's hands, and that's the cult. You start off small. That's exactly what Apple did. Their guerrilla marketing tactic was initially to get into the cult, and then the early adopters, and then we had a full-blown global launch of the iPhone where all people could start to acquire their own touchscreen phone. And they went through a premium pricing model on down the line. Now, market penetration is the AOL model. Again, pure volume. They were giving away CDs. I can't tell you how many CDs I received from AOL in the mail to download. You know what's interesting is I never downloaded the AOL CD. I never felt like it was customized enough. For me, I never felt like it was good enough. And I'm not saying that it wasn't. But they came in at a zero price point, which is very attractive for a lot of consumers. And they wanted market share now. They wanted market share now, and they got a lot of market share. And their bet was that on the back end that they would become cash flow positive. I like betting on the front end. I like, especially as startup companies, you need to be charging more for your product than the red ocean. When you start charging what the red ocean is commanding, what those keystone competitors are charging, you're going to lose. That's exactly where the red ocean wants you to be, and we've spoken about that in prior classes. So I had a fair question from one of you earlier this weekend. Aram, how do we get to the red ocean? Let's just say we are a blue ocean, but we want to get to the red ocean. We know that it can be done. How do we move from the blue ocean to the red ocean? This is another variation of the market development graph. We'll call it graph 2. Now the y-axis is going to be identified as market share. No, I'm sorry. We're going to do this as ROI. The x-axis is going to be identified as time, market share, sorry. This is high, low, high. Now, on the left side, we're going to identify this as the blue ocean. The right side is obviously going to be the red ocean. And if I may make a correction here, this is not ROI. This is market share. The y-axis is market share. Now, we understand in the blue ocean, we understand that it's about intimacy burn. And in the red ocean, we know it's about efficiency burn. And when we look at both of these companies, both of them in their respective oceans have a substantial and meaningful ROI. But how do you go from the blue ocean to the red ocean? Can you just jump across? How do you go from the blue ocean to the red ocean? So here's our ROI. Right now, I'm in the blue ocean, I'm a startup, and now I feel like I need to go into the red ocean. I feel like I can compete with Coca-Cola and Pepsi. I feel like I can compete against Toyota or Honda. I feel like I can compete against Microsoft. So I'm going from the blue ocean to the red ocean. We know that it takes money. We know that it takes distribution. And we know that the last requirement is people. In order to get into the blue ocean or the red ocean, it's going to take a minimum of these 3 characteristics. Now, in order to do that, you notice that in the blue ocean, I've got a strong ROI. But as I start to gravitate to the red ocean, I'm going to be spending more money. And my ROI is not so high anymore. And if you notice that my market share, the size of my footprint, is not growing exponentially, but yet the amount of money that I'm spending is significant. And I continue to spend because I need to get to this red ocean. You can't just jump from here to here. And as I spend more money, I'm hiring more people. I'm getting more distribution. And I continue along. And now my ROI is almost negligible. My ROI is very low, almost negligible. This area here, Death Valley. This is where the market development gap on the first graph is reflected. This is Death Valley. And the longer you stay in here, and now you see that your ROI is so small, but you're expanding your footprint. You're having to spend money on more money on operations, becoming more efficient, sourcing material, your COGS, your raw materials, beating up your suppliers, really, really trying to get the lowest cost you can for the highest quality. But it takes a while. It does not happen overnight. Do you see how difficult it is? You can't just jump from here to here. It's a process. It's a process. So although I showed you how Apple made that leap, they did it by understanding the supply chain, understanding where they were going to source mass amounts of material, where they were going to manufacture. All of these new business models that you learned in school in terms of Six Sigma and how to become more efficient, now you're having to apply it on a mass scale, because the red ocean is about the mass market. The red ocean is about efficiency. And the more efficient you become, the higher your ROI becomes again. But it takes time for you to become GE. It doesn't happen overnight. Their margins for a long time were very low. And while you're down here, oh boy, while your margins are really, really low, I just hope that there's no hiccup in the marketplace. I just hope that the economy stays strong enough for you that you're able to start your upswing on your ROI. And you have a broader, here's another characteristic of the red ocean. They have more customers. Whereas in the blue ocean, you might have a few customers that are, accounting for 20, 30, 40, 50, 80% of your business, where one or two of them account for 70 or 80% of your business. In the red ocean, it's about diversification, all things, all people. And the thinking there is that there is less risk with a broader base of customers. But it's not easy. If you fail to make the turn in the road, it could be the end of the road for you. A bend of the road isn't the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. Now, you don't want to be in Death Valley too much. You're going to need more money. You're going to need, and how are you getting more money? How are you going to expand, accelerate, extend your business when your ROI is almost negligible. You're going to have to possibly look at levering yourself now. Now is where we're looking at, again, the capital structure. Now is where we're looking at the treasury function of the business. The capital structure, okay, well, I may look at raising some additional money. Am I going to lever the business and go for debt, or am I going to sell equity? What are you going to do in order to get to the red ocean? How often are you going to be needing and utilizing this money? Is it going to be every 6 months you're going to need additional tranches of funding because of the growth of the business? You're hiring new people, you're bringing on more resources, experts, you're starting to manufacture more in China. You're going to need not just supply chain experts, but you're going to need individuals that really understand supply chain from the Six Sigma, from the lean manufacturing perspective. That's the red ocean. Or do you want to stay in the blue ocean? Do you want to stay in the blue ocean? Because when you go to the red ocean, you're going to have a budget. You're going to have a serious budget to start marketing everywhere, all the time, regularly. Because if you don't, your competitors will. Your competitors will start nibbling at your market share. The red ocean is red because of the blood in the water. Because of the blood in the water. And I might also add that here, the culture, your corporate culture, changes. Your corporate culture changes significantly. You were a blue ocean company, highly customized goods, highly customized in your customer service, and now you're going to the red ocean. Your corporate culture is going to have to be much less focused on the niceties of your customer. I hate to say it, but that's the way it is. But if you can find me a red ocean company that behaves like a blue ocean company, you're in business. Apple tries to do that, and they do a pretty good job. And there's a reason why they're the most highly valued business in the world. They're a red ocean company competing in their own blue oceans. They're creating their own blue oceans all the time. That's where innovation drives your business. Remember, market share in the red ocean might be great, and the volume that you might do is what you were looking for. But in the blue ocean, you're looking at constantly innovating, constantly trying to make new products. Your market share only tells you a little bit about your future. In the blue ocean, if you continue to innovate, you will continue to grow. You will continue to have that ROI. But don't fall for the red ocean trap where volume solves all problems all the time. It doesn't. But it's great to dream. And when you dream big, and you dream of being in the red ocean. Can you have a customized mentality in the red ocean? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Look at Apple. Look at Apple. Let's also take another look at this graph in particular in a different format. When we talk about market share, we're really talking about the footprint, right? The footprint of your business. And you start off here with the cult. And then you go to here, which are the early adopters. And then we go to the early majority. And now we have the late majority, and we are deep into the red ocean. And finally, we have the laggards. You notice that this is in the form of a target. This is in the form of a target on purpose. And I drew it this way because I wanted you to see where the blue ocean was. I'm sorry, the blue ocean is these two. This is the red ocean here. This is all the red ocean. The first two rings, that center dot and the second ring, this is the blue ocean. And then it phases out from blue to red, this third ring, to the early majority. And the reason why it's in the form of a target is because you need to identify and you need to know where the cult lives. And then once you can point that arrow, you're in business. Once you can point that arrow and you know where your critical mass is, and this is exactly what you're looking for, critical mass. And we talked about this in prior classes, what critical mass was. That's your relevant, critical mass is your relevant target market. Your relevant market share. Now, it's like being able to identify and then continually advertise, continually guerrilla market to the blue ocean, to your critical mass. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You have them corralled. You know where they're at. You can pull the string, you can let the arrow go, and you know where you're going to be aiming. It's not the shotgun approach to guerrilla marketing. It's not the shotgun approach that I should say that the red ocean subscribes to, because in the red ocean, you need to be in the ears and the eyes of all the consumers all the time. Coca-Cola is constantly marketing, they're constantly advertising day in and day out to every single one of us. They know they need to be in our periphery all the time. That's a shotgun approach. They couldn't tell you. They cannot tell you what works and what doesn't work in terms of effective advertising. They may have a pretty good idea, but what they're really, really interested in isn't the best ad. It's frequency. It's frequency, frequency, frequency. How frequently are they advertising to you? It's it seems like with a McDonald's, or it seems like with a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi, it's every single day, all day, every single day. The shotgun approach. Well, as a startup, you don't have their money. You don't have their resources. You're not trying to bridge that gap just yet. You're going to need a lot of guerrilla marketing, and you're going to need this focus. You're going to need to identify the first couple of rings, and then the blue ocean starts to turn into the red ocean in the third ring, and so on and so forth. By the time you get to the laggards, it is pure. pure standardization, pure mass market, pure efficiency. The market share is also expanded. This is, in business, we call it the expandable pie. The expandable pie. Do you see when you first launched into the cult, do you see how small your target was? Difficult to find. They were difficult to find and difficult to track down who that cult was. There's a company that I'm advising right now, and their product is LED lights. Their product is LED, and they're looking for who would be the lowest hanging fruit. Who is it that is going to be part of the cult? Who is their cult? They're thinking right now about off-roaders, off-road 4x4 individuals, and campers. And then they're thinking larger also, eventually trying to bridge that market development gap into possibly recreational uses for maybe in the household, maybe houses, maybe the DOD, maybe who knows, but they right now have a strong focus. They have a very strong focus on off-roaders and niche players, individuals that are going to buy their product, but that are going to pay more for it. They're doing a skimming strategy, or a skimming tactic, I should say. They're not going after the market penetration. They're not going to try to price themselves lower than what's currently out there, primarily because they've got a better product. And they're not trying to be all things to all people. They're trying to have a specific clientele initially. That critical mass is going to be who evangelizes first for them. That's the cult. Moving on to the early adopters. And their price point will then start to possibly come down. But then they're going to have another generation of products that are going to start at a price point up here. And their original price point for products is going to come down. And then it recycles itself. So they're continually moving into a higher price point, because that's where they make their money. That's where the ROI for them is the best. Don't do a shotgun approach unless you're a red ocean company. Then you can aim at this thing. You don't even have to be on. You just hit a piece of it and you're fine. I mean, think of the money in that say a Disney spends on advertising. Think of the money that Samsung or Toyota or Ford, think of the money that they spend. It's frequency. For them, it's about frequency. For them, it's about always being in your sights. They're all things to all people. But when you get to the dealership, then you start tagging on the options, right? Then you start tagging on the options. But the reality of it is, the truck that I buy is going to be the same truck that you buy, is the same truck as somebody else buys. Customizing it is up to you. And the red ocean leaves that up to you. Stay in the blue ocean. Stay in the blue ocean. And again, this is both red and blue. Because if you don't, you're going to end up, in the abyss. You're going to end up with a margin so small that any hiccup in the economy could be disaster. It could be disastrous for you. Keep in mind that we're always looking for our critical mass. We're always looking for a target market that is relevant. And when you're starting to justify your business to investors, when you're starting to have to defend your business to possibly the banks, when you're looking at having to build this business and start raising funds to expand or accelerate your business, I don't want you to say, if I only get 10% or 5% of the market, we're going to be okay. We're going to be billionaires. No, it has to be the relevant market. Let me give you an example. We've talked before about the approach that we'll call it the flyer approach, where you go to the mall, and you come back and there's a flyer on your windshield. What do you do with that flyer? I take it, I crumple it up, and I throw it in the trash in my vehicle. I don't even read it. Maybe 20% of the time I might be like, what is this? But it only takes you a split second to realize you don't trust it and you don't want it because you don't trust it. And the theory behind this is a logical theory, it just doesn't work. It's that, well, look, if there are 3,000 cars that are going to be parked at the mall today, and I go there with 3,000 flyers and I put a flyer on every single car, and let's just say I'm a pest control or a car wash company, whatever it is, 3,000 flyers, I put them on the car. My thinking initially was, well, if I can just get 10% of those, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in business forever. I've got 30 new customers. I'm sorry, 300 new customers. That's more than enough business that I can handle. All I need is 10%. That's naive. How many people actually, it's probably less than 0.1% that actually will call or go to that location for whatever it is that's being solicited. And yet I hear many of your projects, I hear this pitch, Aram, our numbers are conservative. And if we get just 5% of, say, the automobile industry market, I mean, I hear this. If we get 5% of the medical device market, I mean, really? Don't fall into that trap, because that is a shotgun approach left for the red ocean, and yet you're telling me as a blue ocean company that you're going to be able to get 5% of the market in the next 12 months? You must really not want my money, because it's a ridiculous statement. It's the same thing. You're doing the same thing that the flyer approach, those individuals doing the flyers in the car today, you're doing the same exact thing, and there's no real trust in that. No one really trusts the flyer approach. I ask you, how many of you have ever subscribed to a flyer on your windshield at the mall? How many of you have ever participated in whatever it was they were offering? You don't trust it. Here's the other thing. We talked about with the red ocean, and this is advertising. It's about frequency. With the blue ocean, it's about trust. Did you know that when you start looking at doing your guerrilla marketing and your advertising, that it takes a minimum of 3 times. It takes a minimum of 3 times for a customer to trust your product. That doesn't mean they're going to buy it. That means it takes a minimum of 3 times for them to trust it. They need to see or hear your product or your elevator pitch at least 3 times for them to trust it. So when you're thinking about advertising into a newspaper, there's a reason why they have you do it for a year or 6 months. I don't know that a lot of the sales reps or advertising reps actually know it, but they should be conveying to you as the customer that, look, I can put out an ad for you, you can do this, and it's going to cost you X. But you need to be doing it at least 3 times, probably every month, for people just to start trusting. And they might not purchase for it until the 100th time. So the blue ocean is about trust. The faster you can create trust, the quicker you can create diffusion. Again, the process by which you create awareness. The quicker you can get that acceptance, the process by which your product or service is accepted, the faster you can do it, the better. The blue ocean has their work cut out for them. The red ocean is a frequency game. Three times minimum for customers to start trusting your product or service. Don't tell me that your numbers are conservative and that you're going to capture 5% of the market in the medical industry next year by June of 2014. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, because that means you're going to go from a blue ocean to a red ocean in 0 time flat. Now, it certainly can't happen. I mean, there are companies like Pinterest. There are some technologies out there that don't require the huge amounts of resources in terms of individuals. They require more and more bandwidth as it relates to technology, but not necessarily people. And that's a real, Pinterest is a real life blue ocean or red ocean, 0 to 60 very quickly model. That doesn't happen all the time. It does not happen all the time. In fact, it's very rare, so be careful. Be very careful with this mass market approach. People love volume, and with Walmart, people look at Walmart and they say, I would love to get into Walmart. They have very little idea that you're going to have more volume than you ever dreamed of when you get into Walmart. Walmart is also going to command and demand that your margins go from here, your ROI, to here, and maybe even negative. They did that to Rubbermaid. They did that to Rubbermaid. Put them through bankruptcy.
Rubbermaid had to go through bankruptcy because Walmart wanted a lower price point. Lower than what Rubbermaid was, where they were making any money. They got confused and went to the mass market model with Walmart. So today I want you to think about your target market. I want you to look at these graphs. I want you to look at these illustrations. And I want you to look to see what it takes to get from the blue ocean to the red ocean. I want you to think about pricing. I want you to think about skimming. I want you to think about market penetration. How are you going to enter the market? 99% of you are going to do the skimming. I want you to think about what it takes to bridge that gap to go from blue to red. And I want you to think about the cult. Who is your cult? Who is it that you're going to be marketing to initially? Get it into their hands. They will evangelize for you. I'll see you on Thursday, same time, same channel, 1 p.m. Have a great week. Over and out, Roberto.